Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Trinidad and Tobago to host the America's Competitiveness Forum, ACF, October 2014. The late Justice Albert Cross, a shining example to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And no need for panic, there is no bird flu in the Caribbean. Thank you for joining us to our top story. Prime Minister the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar has announced that Trinidad and Tobago will host the America's Competitiveness Forum, ACF, come next October. Speaking at the Piarco International Airport upon arriving from her trip to Panama, the Prime Minister also disclosed the achievements of her visit through the signing of a partial scope trade agreement with the Central American state.
Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar continues to make inroads for the Caribbean region in forging relations with our Latin American neighbors. Coming from her trip to Panama, where she attended the America's Competitiveness Forum, ACF, Trinidad and Tobago used the visit as an opportunity to sign on to a number of agreements with the Republic of Panama for the purpose of trade. The significance of these signings, Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar says, is expected to result in reduction of food prices locally.
A selected number of goods such as citrus fruits, aerated waters, bitters, petroleum products. And for Panama, 40% of the tariff lines negotiated will receive a 100% preferential rates. And the kinds of products coming out of Panama, which are contained in the agreement, include chilled meat, fresh and chilled fish, eggs, wheat, salt, pepper, amongst others, live animals for breeding, fresh meat as well as chilled meat, and these will help us with the issue of food prices. We may assist in the food production level. I'm sure my Minister of Food Production will be happy to hear that we can explore these markets now for supplies in foods for Trinidad and Tobago.
Apart from the trade agreement signing, the Prime Minister says talks with Copa Airlines have commenced for the use of Trinidad and Tobago as a transit hub for visitors seeking to travel to Central American destinations.
We discussed the possibility of interlining with Copa, because Copa doesn't fly, for example, to London, whereas we do fly. And therefore, people who are coming out of London, there's a possibility they can use Trinidad and Tobago as a hub to take them into Central America, Panama, the rest of Latin America. So I have asked them, they've agreed to send a delegation for discussions with respect to interlining with Copa, and with a view to looking at the possibility of further flights into Trinidad and Tobago. Another issue that they were very keen on is with respect to purchasing a jet fuel from Trinidad and Tobago. I believe they have about 98 Copa planes, and they're very keen to buy from Trinidad and Tobago jet fuel. So that's an area, of course, which we also explore as bringing in revenue for Trinidad and Tobago.
The Prime Minister noted that Trinidad and Tobago will play host to the forum come October 2014 and expects a number of business delegations and diplomats to converge in Port of Spain, bringing further investors to the region.
The next ACF will take place, as I said before, in October next year, and Ministry of Planning, led by Minister Dr. Botiwari, they have been designated as a lead entity for this forum. They've already set up a secretariat, and they are fast at work in terms of moving to host the 8th ACF in Port of Spain next year. The challenge of the region generally, as it relates to education, was a focal point for discussion at the ACF, and charting really a global perspective on infrastructure policy.
Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Dukran accompanied the Prime Minister during the Panama visit and noted that the agreement signed signify an upward movement in developing the region's economic standpoint.
The fact that Trinidad and Tobago will now host this next year is a reflection of the regions, including Central America and the Caribbean, that a new thrust towards competitiveness will be initiated here in Trinidad and Tobago. At the forum that took place, there are many people who got involved from the private sector, and therefore it's an opportunity to bring the private sector of the Caribbean region together in order to come together on the basis of a strategy for competitiveness of the region.
These relations signed stem from talks with Panama since January 2011. Both the private and public sector will benefit from the agreement. Further relations coming from this agreement is a deepening of ties with other Central American states, Guatemala and El Salvador, which are expected to result in trade talks in the near future. Kimberly Calawan, News 4.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister says the late Justice Ulrich Cross is a shining example to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Former Justice Cross passed away peacefully in his sleep last Friday at the age of 96. The Prime Minister cites his philanthropy and his dedication as two of his most notable attributes. In a press release, Mrs. Persad Bissessa notes Justice Cross lived his life to the fullest by pursuing and achieving his goals, and even after his retirement from public life, retaining a commitment to assist many who needed his help. She adds he made his mark internationally as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Justice Cross will be cremated in a private ceremony on Thursday, 10th October, in accordance with his final wishes. The public is invited to celebrate his life at a memorial service on Friday, October 11th at 10 a.m. at Memorial Park, Upper Frederick Street, Port of Spain. The public is also invited to sign the condolence book, which will be available daily until Friday, 11th October from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Royal Air Force Association, that's at 20 Queen's Park East, Port of Spain. When we come back, no need for panic. There is no bird flu in the Caribbean. Stay with us. At an education and sensitization meeting at the Phase 2 basketball court, Director of the Police Complaints Authority, PCA, Gillian Lucky, sought to educate residents about the roles and responsibilities of the services offered by the Police Complaints Authority. She also made some disclosures regarding some very pertinent investigations that were currently before the PCA.
PCA Director Gillian Lucky made this admission while she addressed a very small gathering of residents at the PCA's Public Education and Sensitization meeting at the Phase 2 basketball court, Beetham Gardens, Port of Spain. Greaves was killed on September 1st during an altercation with police officers. Residents have claimed that police fired on the father of two for no reason, while the police have maintained that Greaves were among a group of men who challenged the police with a firearm. Ms. Lucky said the PCA has gone through the file and there were issues that concerned her.
Any gun that was alleged to be in the hands of Christopher Greaves ought to have been taken as an exhibit by an independent party and taken to the nearest property room in a police station. And those are the things the PCA looks at. Who conducted the investigation initially? Where and how were these exhibits taken? Where were they found? In whose possession were they?
She noted that it has been more than 30 days since the death, and while she understands investigations take a while, there should be certain things in the file, and she has since called the investigating officer and requested it. Ms. Lucky said she was aware that the autopsy shows that Greaves received 3 wounds to the back. However, that does not automatically mean it was wrongdoing.
Not because somebody was shot in the back automatically means that there was wrongdoing. It does not. But what it does mean is that there has to be a thorough, scientific, clear, independent investigation, because that raises questions.
She assured Greaves' mother, Annette, the investigation is ongoing. She said when the probe is complete and based on the evidence, the PCA will make a recommendation they think appropriate.
I cannot tell you at this stage, Ms. Graves, based on what we have, the investigation is continuing. The police are investigating. We are monitoring their investigation, but we are also gathering evidence and getting our information. We will then look at the whole picture, and wherever or whatever is painted by the information and the evidence, we will then make the recommendation we see as appropriate.
MP Donna Cox also attended the meeting and told residents that they must do what is right if they want to help the relevant authorities point the way forward.
If we know what is happening, if you have information, then you need to come forward and speak to persons from the Police Complaints Authority. I am aware also that many residents would tell me that they don't trust the police, they don't want to speak to the police. Well, here you have another avenue where you can come forward and talk to persons in the name of the Police Complaints Authority.
MP Donna Cox said she was elated for all the assistance being rendered to the residents by the director of the PCA, Ms. Gillian Lockie.
I am aware of the limitations of the Police Complaints Authority, and we are hoping that you will be given more authority, more investigative authority and so on, so that you will be able to carry out your job to the best of your ability.
Residents also got the opportunity to express their concerns, and many of them spoke about police abusing their powers. Ms. Gillian Lockie advised the residents that the PCA is there to assist in any way they can, and they should make use of the authority to make reports. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Members of the public are being told not to panic as the Caribbean Public Health Agency has assured that there is no bird flu in the Caribbean.
The Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, is also confirming that influenza A H5N1, commonly referred to as avian influenza or bird flu, has not been detected in the Caribbean region. A release from the agency on Friday stated that although human infection with this virus is rare, sporadic cases of human infection have been reported outside the Caribbean, with the World Health Organization having listed Indonesia, Vietnam and Egypt as reporting the highest number of human H5N1 cases to date. The release noted that seasonal influenza affects many thousands of people in the Caribbean each year, which is an infectious respiratory disease that is associated with the circulation of one or more of three influenza virus types, A, B, and less commonly type C. Influenza viruses A and B cause seasonal epidemics yearly during autumn and winter in temperate regions. In some tropical countries, such as Trinidad and Tobago, influenza viruses circulate throughout the year with one or two peaks during rainy seasons. CARPHA says seasonal influenza can cause mild to severe illness and at times can lead to death, with most deaths occurring among people aged 65 years and older. It is characterized by symptoms such as a sudden onset of high fever, cough, headache, muscle and joint pain, severe malaise, sore throat and runny nose. Most healthy adults may be able to infect others beginning one day before symptoms develop and up to 5 to 7 days after becoming sick. While most people recover from fever and other symptoms within a week without requiring medical attention, in some cases, illness can be severe, resulting in hospitalizations and deaths, mainly among people at greater risk for serious complications if they become infected. This includes older people, young children, pregnant women, people with certain chronic health conditions such as asthma, diabetes or heart disease, and persons living in facilities like nursing homes. To avoid the spread of the flu, CARPHA advises members of the public to avoid contact with individuals who have influenza or flu-like symptoms, stay home if sick, wash hands often with soap and water, particularly before and after eating, after visiting a public place, after using the washroom, after coughing and sneezing, and after touching surfaces that may have been contaminated. Observe respiratory etiquette by coughing and sneezing into their arm and not their hand. If a tissue is used, it should be disposed of as soon as possible and then followed by hand washing. If soap and water are not available, an alcohol-based hand rub may be used. Linens, eating utensils, and dishes belonging to those who are sick should not be shared without washing thoroughly first. Eating utensils can be washed either in a dishwasher or by hand with water and soap and do not need to be cleaned separately. And frequently touched surfaces should be cleaned and disinfected at home, work, and school, especially if someone is ill. CARPHA says the most effective way to prevent the disease or severe outcomes from the illness is vaccination, which has been available and used for more than 60 years. Statistics show that among healthy adults, influenza vaccine can prevent 70 to 90% of influenza-specific illness, while among the elderly, the vaccine reduces severe illness and complications by up to 60% and deaths by 80%. Vaccination is especially important for people at higher risk of serious influenza complications and for people who live with or care for high-risk individuals. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
Sport is up right after the break. Stay with us. Club Sando ended the first round at the top of the Blink B Mobile National Super League standing. At the other end of the table is FC Santa Rosa. Both teams will meet in the semi-finals of the knockout competition after victories on Sunday. Wayne Cunningham has the highlights of Sando's triumph over the Defence Force.
The families came out on quarter-final Sunday in the knockout competition of the National Super League. And the highlight of the day was the league table proppers, FC Santa Rosa, booking a place in the Final Four at the expense of Real Maracas. According to the draw, they are slated to meet the winners of this Club Sando versus Defence Force clash at the Atta Boland Stadium in Couva. With Sando at the top of the league table and the Defence Force second from bottom, it was not long before that form differential came to the fore. As a matter of fact, it only took 12 minutes. Jesse Downing putting Club Sando in front. Six minutes later, it was 2-0. Anthony Paris meeting the cross from Karen Smith first time and beating Keston Guy. The military's first sight of goal came in the 25th minute. Karen Bruno starting the move with a deft turn, but Jamal Goodrich could not latch on to the cross from Jamel Bailey. Instead, it would be the Southerners going further ahead. Paris with his second following a clever free kick as they caught almost all their opponents napping. "3-0 would have been a decent halftime score, but Club Sando took one more before the break. Ryan Frederick slotting in the center from his captain, Tiba McKnight. Nine minutes into the second half, the Defence Force pulled the one back. The man they call Mr. Michael Edwards, showing the youths how it's done. But his efforts would go unheralded as his defenders stood by and was carved apart by Club Sando in the 69th minute. Tiba McKnight making it 5-1. Following that strike, it was virtually over for the soldiers, sailors and airmen, but they managed a last-minute consolation through Dwight Scott to make the final score 5-2 in favor of Club Sando. A score which will be noted by Keith Lucloy as his men of FC Santa Rosa are set to face the rampant Southerners on Sunday in the semi-finals. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
More news after the break. Stay with us. Habitat for Humanity, in collaboration with First Citizens, is serving yet another family. 4 months ago, a new leaf was turned to mark the start of this new project. Today, it is with great pride that the Georges family will be the first to benefit from this project.
Dreams do come true, and more significantly, witnessing the Georges family of realizing their dreams of ever owning a new home.
I want to say how proud we are of this moment that we were able to hand this piece over. wish you many years of happiness and wish you many years of joy. So thank you all very much.
This is house number 198, built by Habitat and its sponsors and volunteers. And we were wondering, this year we decided that we will probably set a target of 500 houses in the next 3 years.
A major significance of this initiative is that this is the first Habitat for Humanity UWI campus chapter home built through such an effort that has had over 42 students and members contributing 166 hours to this project.
First of its kind, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the region as a whole. Today is therefore what we would call a historic day for all supporters of Habitat for Humanity, University of the West Indies, and First Citizens.
The campus chapter concept is built on the belief that young people can make a significant contribution in society.
Members of the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus chapter, congratulations. You have made a difference. We are confident that with this achievement, you will be inspired to continue on this path. And when you take your positions as young professionals in the workforce, you will always have the foundation of service as part of your work and life ethos.
In recognition of World Habitat Day, everyone has the right to decent, affordable housing. However, almost 2 billion people lack access to this basic necessity. New home owner and elated Mr. George extended his heartfelt thanks and gratitude to all the students and members who made this dream for his family a reality.
It's like a dream come true, but it's not a dream, it is reality. And I want to thank Habitat for Humanity, First Citizen Bank, the University of the West Indies, and all the help that came to do this.
Decent housing is basic human right. It is the right of every woman, man and child to obtain and sustain a home in a safe community where they can live in peace and dignity. This according to Minister of Finance Larry Hawaii.
We're really put here on this earth to help each other, to help make each other's lives meaningful. And I think Habitat has given certainly us at First Citizens, and I'm sure all the young students, an opportunity to fulfill our mandate here on earth, to make a contribution towards fulfilling that. And I want to thank Habitat for Humanity.
It must be noted that while the construction of houses is a central part of Habitat's mission, it is only one component of what they do to improve widespread access to adequate housing. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.